Hey everyone, welcome to Blue Abroad Analytics Corner, The Rivals. I'm Dan and today we're discussing Hawthorn Football Club, so let's get to it. In my decade here, Hawthorn have been a staple of success in finals, and Clarkson just has an uncanny knack of finding players in trade and draft periods and making them work. Often players that are kind of forgotten about by their clubs or have had long runs of injuries. Now, his game style has always stood the test of time, and 2019 was no different. Many people wrote them off, but they pushed really hard right up until the end for finals place. And even with you take into account losing players of Tom Mitchell's ilk, Scully as well wasn't available for much of it. All this before really a ball was even thrown. This has worked out in their favour though for me. I mean, Warpool got midfield time, Jaeger really stepped up onto the on-ball duties and shone throughout the year. And the numbers for 2019 do bode well if they carry them over into 2020. They were the top percentile for points from turnovers, top 5 for having the stingiest defence, and also ground ball gets around the ground. They were in the top percentile for that too. And then when you look at some of the signings, for me, the signs are pretty good for Clarkson. The one negative really was the points scored for the team. But you would have thought with the signings of Patton, and should that work out, another year in Mitch Lewis, the signs are really bright for Hawthorn Football Club. They are one of the most experienced and mature sides in the competition. So it bodes well, and I'd expect them to be around the finals at least. Even though their stalwarts have retired, there's a lot of young players coming through the ranks. 2019 off-season saw Hawthorn Football Club top up their reserves of talent, really, both for the future, also mixing it up with some maligned players from other clubs. This successful policy has served them really well, as I just said earlier in the video. And the trade period, they snared Sam Frost. Now, Sam Frost, key defender from Melbourne, he has the ability to pinch up top and also in the ruck. He combines high strength with great foot speed. And he can really pose a problem for opposition coaches. That matchup is really tough, whether it's tall or small. And that really, for me, it really helps them out. He also reads the ball in flight exceptionally well. And he comes from a system that does like the play-on style of footy, which should help him slot into round one straight away in 2020. It's a great get for me for the Hawks, and it's cost them next to nothing. Next up was Jonathan Patton. Now, we know a lot about Jonathan Patton. He's kind of one of them unfulfilled talents. Now, they do lack a target, and that is what Patton is very good at. And on his day, he can tear up teams. I'm very excited about this acquisition for the Hawthorn Football Club. He is, for me, a 50-plus goal player. He's highly mobile, super strong in the air, has a very good set shot, and he also looks to bring players in and around him. And with the talent that's available to him around him in the small forwards, Hawks could really have unlocked the door for big scores going into 2020. Now, the draft period, Will Day was pick 13 for them, an athletic rebounding defender. The South Australian was probably a surprise pick to be taken that early, given he wasn't invited to the draft. But those who've seen him play know he's a very accomplished footballer. He's the modern-day small defender, highly athletic, great footy IQ. He's just a natural rebounding machine. Gets the metres gained, and we know that is super in vogue in the AFL today. Has a high ceiling for me, and should come and see some footy really early doors, I'd imagine, early year, and could be the steal of the draft when we look back in the years to come for 2020. 29, they took Finn McGuinness, father-son selection. It wasn't really a surprise, probably the worst kept secret in football, and he's one of them bigger-bodied mids we talk about every draft period. Exceptional engine, super quick, and really clean hands, particularly in traffic. Good decision maker too. Very strong not only in his body but his tackling too, and that will suit the Clarkson style of play. He will have to sharpen up his kicking and his ability to find the ball, but when you've got coaches like Sam Mitchell and then the guys he's training with, your Tom Mitchells, your Warpools, your Amiras, some really elite kickers in that bunch there, he should shine. Maybe not this year, I think, for first team football, but keep an eye on him in the Box Hill Hawks. Could be a real find for Hawthorn. Their last selection in the draft was Josh Morris, another South Australian, and in a league where third tall forwards are becoming the new on ballers in the comp, he certainly fits the bill. Beautiful kicking technique. He's really strong overhead, reads it well, very mobile and athletic. And he's definitely a project for Hawks fans to really keep a close eye on and get excited about. His ability to apply pressure and his tank have been the things that have been questioned, but you'll work on them key things. I mean, that's pretty much sums up anyone taken post 50 in the AFL draft. But he's an exciting project yet, nonetheless, and really someone to keep an eye out for. In the rookies, they took Michael Hartley. Now, the ex-Bombers man is the personification of keep trying. This is his third club now. And he adds to the Hawks' backline stocks. Probably stiff to leave Essendon last year, as he particularly in the first half of the VFL, he was one of the leading performers defensively. He did get shifted again to forward line, and he also pinch hit in the ruck for the Essendon VFL. But he has the AFL experience, albeit only small. He has been in and around the system quite a bit. Exceptionally versatile. Will be a good little pickup should injuries occur. He was more than serviceable. Now, the final acquisition was a guy you'll be very familiar if you watch this show with, Emerson Jeka. Now, we know I suggested him. I'd love to see him come to Carlton in one of the later picks when we did our draft show. And Hawthorn picked him up. Very powerful contested mark, very powerful player. Got great aggression, great game sense, reads the play really well, and he's a hallmark two-way defender for me. He could be that kind of guy that reads the play really well and he sets up an attack nicely with a smart handball or a short kick. Probably needs a year or two for me in the VFL, but moving forward, he has the raw skills that you'd look for someone to really develop and really shine. And we know every year there is someone who comes in the rookies who 2 or 3 years breaks into the first team and stays there. Now let's have a look at how that affects the 2020 side. Now this is the side that I've gone with for round one, barring injuries and that whatnot can happen. And as you can see, I think it's a fairly straightforward team here. I think Frost, Frawley, Stratton, Hardwick. There's talk McAvoy's going to line up at centre half back. He's just had that injury this week, but you'd imagine Corky, he'll be more than ready for round one. And James Sicily, for me, it's got everything that you look for in a forward in a back line. You've got Sicily there, who's one of the premier defenders in the comp. McAvoy's a great target, and he does mark the ball exceptionally well. Frost, we've just talked about him, real good reader of the play. It's got everything you really look for there. Stratton's a niggly little customer. Moving on to the midfield, I mean, this midfield for me is one of the best in the comp, probably really underrated. Henderson, Scully, you've got class and dedication there. You've got Tom Mitchell. John Segler's shown a lot of good signs to be the future ruckman for the Hawthorn Football Club. And Warple and O'Meara on the ball were phenomenal last year. And they're feeding an attack here that's got everything. Chad Wingard wasn't at his best in 2019, but there's no doubt about his class. Gunston, ever reliable. Tim O'Brien and Bruce, phenomenal players. And Patton and Mitch Lewis, for me, really is core to this. Last year, this is where they struggled. Their scoreboard potency. Got some real ballers there. Real good targets, and it'll be exciting to see with that midfield feeding in, particularly with the reintroduction of Tom Mitchell, how exciting this forward line potentially on paper looks. On the bench, you've got Smith, who was one of the best players last year for me. He was just superb, very underrated player. Burgoyne, Shields, and Poplar, staples of the Hawthorn Football Club, but ooze class. So let's have a look at 2020, where we see them after finishing 9th last year and winning in a staggering 6 out of 8 of their final games. I really do expect Hawthorn to be there or thereabouts in the final series. Champs Data has them, for me, 11th strongest side in the comp. But when you look at this team, I think it's higher. I think the squad's higher, particularly when you look at the midfield. It's got all the tough ball accumulation, and it's got a ball-winning machine in Tom Mitchell. Former Brownlow medalist in your side, you always are going to have a chance. And there is no doubt about his class, no matter what anyone says. And with the development from Warple last year and also the injury-free year for Jaeger, it's a real formidable trio for me. And when you've got Smith, Hendo on the outside, Scully doing the hard yakka, you've got a variety of leaders and stats in there, the top 5 leaders of stats, that could really pose a problem for any team. As a unit, they possess all the tools throughout forward, defence and the back line for me. And really, these could be one of the top contenders. I mean, particularly when you've got Sicily down the back. And if he stays down the back, that back line is going to be very tough to beat. Now, my one to watch this year, Mitchell Lewis. He showed tremendous strides last year, kicking 20 goals in 12 games, ranking 4th in contested marks and top 10 in inside 50 marks. And he has a solid set shot. He moves really well. He's big, he's strong, he's very, very mobile. Seems to read the play really well. And I think he's definitely going to be 40 plus this year. And he's a really exciting forward to watch. He's one of the most exciting forwards for me. And this league has got a lot of talented tall forwards coming up in the comp, and he's one of them for me. I think he's going to have a real stellar year. So how do you beat this side, Hawthorn Football Club? Well, I mean, if you watch the Carlton game in Tassie, we did show how you do it. It's playing really quick. Hawthorn do like to play quick themselves. They like to move it. It's all meters gained, and it's a very, very, very hit forward mentality. They're very disciplined as well. So the way that you've got to beat them is really you try and take away from their strengths. You've got to stop Mitchell just moving the chains. They like short kicks, they like to hold possession, they like to go up the field. And it's about making them having to force that kick out wide, force them to kick to contested contests, and really trying to starve the midfield of easy ball. Once these guys get used to having the ball, they're going to run over you. Now, we do know that they don't score very heavily, and that's one of the things, it's one of their criticisms. Now, I think that will improve, but there's one thing. If you can control the game early on from scoreboard pressure, genuinely, unless you're Carlton in Tasmania, you should be able to control the game from here on out. And it's about adapting your tactics. Clarkson is one of the most adapted coaches in the comp. He's willing to make the shift. So it's about creating that indecision, about really getting on top of the midfield and really stopping them being able to distribute and play their game style. Whether that's playing scrappy, we know they do very well in ground ball gets, but generally when the game becomes a bit scrappy, don't become as free-flowing, that's when you can kind of put the pressure on them. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate the love and support I've had from all the 17 teams that we've covered throughout the year. I wish the Hawks the best success for this year. I hope you have some great luck and have some great times, except against the mighty Blue Boys. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. It's not always Carlton content. We do look in depth at other teams as we play throughout the year. And as always, stay Navy, Blue folks. See you soon.